Hi everyone, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, good evening. So let's start the session. I am sharing my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
We have one candidate, Shika. So Shika, can you let us know how we can pronounce your surname? It's like Gangwar, Gangwar, what it will be?
Sir, it's a Gangawar.
Gangwar, okay.
Ji.
I thought it's like
Gangawar.
Gangwar, yeah, right.
No,
Okay.
it's a Gangawar.
Gangwar, okay, good. So let's start now. Let's go delete. So just let me know if you have any doubt from the previous session. किसी को कुछ पूछना है? No. बढ़िया है फिर तो. चलो. So let's start the new topic, storage account. We have the service in AWS for the storage that is known as S3 bucket. S3 bucket is the name of the resource that we can use for the storage in AWS. Now, when we talk about the storage part, everyone knows that storage is used to keep the data. Why we need to use this kind of storage if we already have the storage available with the virtual machine? When we talk about the EC2 instance, EC2 instance is what? It's one of the virtual machine. In the virtual machine, when we create the instance, automatically we will get the disk. The disk will get added. We get the drives inside the EC2. You might have seen in the practical, when we create the EC2 instance, whether it is Linux or whether it is Windows, by default, one of the partition will be there and it is divided into drives, C drive, D drive, E drive, like that. Even we have seen the practical of EBS volume as well, elastic block storage. So we can save our data over there as well. Then why we need the storage? If we can save our data in the drives, then why we need the storage separately as a S3? So what happens? We have, when we talk about data, we have two kinds of data. The first one is your structured data, and the second one is your unstructured data. When we are talking about the drives, which is there with the EC2 instance, just like C drive, D drive, E drive, we can use it for our personal purpose, but we cannot use it for the centralized storage. Suppose we have 300 servers running on the AWS portal. We have 300 EC2 instances, and we have very critical data of all these 300 servers. So we cannot rely upon the drives which is there in the EC2 instance. We cannot centrally manage them. If I want to keep all the data in a one storage location so that anytime, whenever I want, I can access that particular data, that is not possible in the case of drives. If you are keeping your data, just like, let's suppose I have kept my data in these drives, D drive, F drive, C drive, and that is my personal storage. If I want to, if anyone else from the outside, if they want to use this storage, so what I will have to do, I will have to first do the connectivity with that particular system. Suppose there is one of my friend and he wants to use my drives. So I will have to do the connectivity from my laptop to his laptop first. I will have to do the ping. After that, I will have to share the drives. I will go to the property. Then I will go to the sharing option. Then I need to share the drive. Then I will give the permission. Then that person will access my drive. Then he can copy and paste the data. It is good for one user. I can do the connectivity. I can share the drive. But if I have in my company 10,000 users, if 10,000 users are there, so it is not feasible for me to go property share with each and every user. And even these kind of drives will have certain limit. It is not something that you need to store the data in the petabytes, in EBs, in PBs, in TBs, so you can store it here. That is not possible. Especially in the cloud, they will not give you that kind of storage capacity that you can use to store the data. So these kind of storage will have a lot of limitation. That is only good to store the personal data. But if you want the centralization control of each and every data, you want to apply the permission, you want to maintain the security, you want to handle the latency part. So these kind of drive is not a sufficient option. Even to access the data from the network drive, it is something like slowness issues. It will hit the bandwidth. So what company does? Company use, if they are on the cloud environment, they will be using a particular centralized storage. If they are on AWS, so they will be using the S3 bucket service. So S3 bucket is the name of the service which gives you the storage facility in AWS. Now, when we talk about the data, so we have two types of data, structured data and unstructured data. What is structured data? Structured data is mostly in the form of tables. Just like if I open any Excel here, if I open Excel here and if I type date, topics completed, candidate name, ship timing, like that. So if our data is organized in a structured format, if it is organized properly, if I want to check the data of 10th of August, so if my data is in organized format, just like in Excel format, the data is organized, it will look good, it will look structured. So that is called structured data. When we talk about the unstructured data means that is not organized. It is like a raw kind of format. Just like here, if you will go to my, suppose in my app drive, I have pasted some of the images. A lot of images are available here, or suppose a lot of documents, a lot of videos are available here, like this. This is called unstructured data, which is not in structured format. So we are just copy and pasting it. So the data which is very organized, just like the Excel data, that is the structured data, and the data that we are only just saving, we are just copy and pasting it in the location, in the storage. It is not organized properly. That is unstructured data. So images can be unstructured data, the software files can be unstructured data, log files can be unstructured data. Structured data example can be your Excel, the data which is in Excel format, that is structured data. The data which is in SQL Server, which is in SQL format, that is structured data, because that will be in the form of table. So whatever data is in the form of table, and if it is organized properly, that is called structured data. So for structured data, in order to save the structured data, company have different mechanism. They have SQL, they have MySQL Server, they have Cosmos DB. These are the types of database. they have MariaDB, they have MongoDB, etc. So in order to store the structured data format, they have a lot of different options. And SQL is very much famous. Among all these options, SQL is very much famous. Most of the companies, they are using the SQL Server. That's the reason the demand of the SQL is very high. The companies always look for the candidate in the database profile who has the SQL Server knowledge. So in all these kind of data formats, in all these kind of servers, in all these kind of storages, we run the query. You might have heard about the career of data scientist. So what data scientists do, they analyze the data actually. They analyze the data of 10 years, 20 years. Basis on that, they analyze the business status, that what is my business standpoint right now. So the people who are working on the SQL, what they will do, whatever structured data we have for the company, just like suppose we have some Excel data, so that Excel data will get stored in the SQL Server. SQL is a type of storage. So here the Excel data will get stored. And if I want to get the result of any particular data, suppose I want to see the data of 10 years back, and I want to do the analysis, I want to do the comparison of that. So I will have to run the query. In all these servers, we have to run the query. And in order to run the query, we should know some programming things. There, some basic programming background is required if you want to run the query in an advanced manner. If it is just a normal query, get query, that can be run, that can be understood. But if you want to run the complex queries, if you want to get the data details basis on that particular data which is stored in the SQL, then you should know the query part. So database administrators are generally managing these kind of things, and they are responsible for running the query. So structured data, in order to store the structured data, we need these kind of resources. We need SQL, Cosmos DB, MariaDB, and MongoDB kind of concept. To store the unstructured data, we have a lot of things. We can either use the window drive. We can save our unstructured data in the drives like this. Or if we want to save it on the cloud infrastructure, then we can save it on the S3 bucket. So in the S3 bucket, we can store our unstructured data. If we have any structured data for the company, we need SQL. We need MySQL and all. So it is a kind of a storage that will give you the facility to store a lot of data. And even you can manage it centrally. You can access that data from any part of the world because that is stored on the cloud platform. So you can access that data from any part of the world. Now, when we talk about the S3 bucket, it is one of the main service of AWS. It is one of the main service of AWS. Main service means in AWS, if someone is doing any kind of development work, if any kind of development work is going on, if we have the website, if we have the web application, so whatever data is there in the backend, if there is any database attached with my website in the backend, we can save all the content inside the S3 bucket. So S3 bucket is used for a lot of purposes in AWS. It's not only to store the data. We have a lot of purposes. For that, we can use the S3 bucket. I will tell you that purpose in some time. Now, S3 bucket is also known as infinite scaling. Infinite scaling means basis on the storage requirement, it can expand. If I have the requirement of 1 TB storage, it is possible. If I have the requirement of 2 TB storage, that is also possible. So it gives you infinite scaling option. So it is also known as infinite scaling storage. So S3 is also known as infinite scaling storage. That is another word. Many of the websites mostly, if their databases are running on the cloud platform, if any company is using the AWS in order to host their website, so they will keep their backend data on the S3 bucket. If any company has the web application, if they have the website and any of the database is attached with that particular website or web application, they are mostly dependent on the S3 in order to store their database services, in order to store their content, their configuration file. So most of the database data is available on the S3. So it is known as backbone of the websites. Most of the services in AWS, are using the S3 for integration purpose as well. Integration means connectivity, the backend connectivity. If I want to use something, if I want to use any resource and I want to save my data over the cloud, I don't want to keep it in my local drive, then I can integrate the S3 service along with that particular resource and I can save my data over there. That facility is also there. So it also offers the integration service. So through S3, we can get the integration service. We can attach that S3 storage with most of the AWS services here. Even we can attach it with the EC2 as well. So what is the purpose of using the S3 bucket for the company? For what purposes they are using it? So company have different purpose. It's not only about data storage. We have different purposes. It can be to store the backup data. Backup data in the sense, if we have taken any backup, if you want to take any backup of the EC2 services, so we can also keep it in the S3. You might have seen the option when I was telling you the backup option, backup practical. So there was the option of S3 integration at the very bottom. So you can select that option. You can create your S3 storage account and you can keep the backup data on the cloud as well. If you don't want to keep it in a vault, you can integrate the vault with the S3 and you can save your data over there as well. It is also used for disaster recovery, DR situations. Disaster recovery in the sense, suppose you have very critical data of the company and you have saved it in the on-premises. Your data, all the database servers are running in the on-premises environment. Due to any outage, you have lost the complete on-premises access. Your on-premises environment is not available because of the outage. Maybe your server got crashed, your storage is not available. So in that condition, you will lose your entire data. Entire data will be lost. So if you want to avoid this kind of situation, because in on-premises, anytime there can be problem, because you are only limited to a particular data center. If you are there in UK South, so you are only limited to the UK South. You are saving your data in the UK South only. So if you have saved, if you have created the copy of your data on the cloud S3, so you will get the disaster recovery. If on-premises data got corrupted, you have the option from the cloud, you can use it. If the cloud data is not available in the sense, you have saved your data in the UK South location on AWS. Now there is an outage in the UK South. AWS services are impacted. So what you can do, you can transfer your data from UK South to any other region, maybe North Virginia. You can transfer your data to North Virginia. It will hardly take few minutes. So your data will be available all the time, even during the disaster recovery process as well. If one region is impacted, you can transfer your data to any other region. If it is on S3, if it is on S3, that is possible. If it is on premises, if there is any outage in the on-premise, so it is not possible all that on the time to transfer the data to any other data center, but in cloud that is possible. So it gives you data disaster recovery feature as well. The data will be there in the archive format. Archive format in the sense it will be there in the compressed format, so it will not consume lot of storage. You will not have to pay for the complete storage. You will just pay for the services in the storage that you will use. One more thing, one more feature of archive is what happens in some company. Suppose there is a company and we have the CCTV footage. Let's take an example of CCTV footage. In most of the multinational company, what they do, they keep the CCTV footage recording for at least 90 days, just for the compliance purpose. For the compliance purpose and record, they will just keep the CCTV footage recording for 90 days. After 90 days, just to free up the space of the storage, they will delete that. Because it is consuming the storage, obviously. So they delete the storage, they delete the recordings after 90 days. But suppose after 90 days, I may need that particular data. Then what I will do? If there is something critical and I want to watch that particular footage and I have deleted that because of the storage, because that is on-prem. If it is on-prem, I will have to purchase a lot of hard disk. So that is costly, and data and the video recordings are very huge file. So that's the reason they will just keep it for 90 days, then they will delete it. But there are some videos that I want to save, I want to keep it. Just like, let's talk about the hospital scenario. They keep the patient database for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years as well. So in that situation, what they do, they convert the data in the archival format. They convert the data in the compressed format and they can save it. If you are using the on-premises, even though you will do the archive of the data, but still you need the storage. You need the hard disk. So there will be cost. You need to purchase it. If you are using the S3 bucket service, if any data is very special to you and you want to keep it safe for a longer duration, you can create the archive, you can compress that data and you can upload it to the S3 bucket. Anytime when you need it, you can just open that data and you can use it. You don't have to purchase any additional hard disk. If you want to delete the data, you can do it. So no physical infrastructure cost. You don't have to invest in the physical infra. So that is also one of the advantage of having the S3. These all are the advantages. Most of the companies are not using each and every feature here. It depends upon their requirement. Now we have the hybrid cloud storage. It offers you the hybrid cloud storage as well. What is the hybrid cloud storage? Hybrid cloud storage means if some of the infrastructure is running on premises and some of the part is running on the AWS. So what you can do, you can save some of the data in on premises, and if you want to create the copy of that data on the cloud environment, so you can save it on the S3 as well. So it will give you the hybrid infrastructure facility, means you can save your data in different locations. Some data can be stored in the on premises, some data can be stored in the S3. Even if you want to create the replica of that data, that whatever data you have saved in the on premises, that should be saved in the AWS S3 as well. So that is also possible in the hybrid cloud storage. Then most of the companies are using the S3 bucket for application hosting. If they have any software and they want to run it on the cloud, So they are using the S3 services, and on S3 they are hosting their application and they are creating the links, and users are able to access that application with the help of S3 bucket. Just like, let's take an example. If there is any web application, if we have any application which is running on the web, let's talk about Netflix application. Netflix is one of the web application. We can access it over the browser as well. So that is a kind of web application. If you want to host it on the cloud, you can use the S3 service. If you want to host your applications on the cloud storage, then you can use the S3 service. So that is also possible. It is also used for media hosting. Media hosting in the sense, if you have any data which is in video format, if you have a lot of video streaming data and you want to reduce the latency, you want to manage the latency part. Latency means slowness. Suppose you have some of the customers who is accessing the data, who is accessing the media videos through the UK location. Then you have some customers who are accessing the same video from USA location. So media is available. Suppose media is available in the on-prem. That media file, that video file is available in the on-premises, and your on-premises is available in India. So actual data is available in India. Persons are trying to access it from UK as well, from USA as well. So there will be latency problem. There will be slowness while streaming. So what AWS offers, AWS gives you the facility of media hosting. Means you can save your streaming videos in the S3 bucket as per your location. You can save one of the copy in the UK location. You can save another copy in the USA location. So USA users will get the link of the USA, and UK people will get the link of the UK media. So they would be able to access that particular media file, that particular video file, without having any latency issues. So that is also possible with the S3. Then S3 is also used for big data analytics. If we have big data concept, big data, Hadoop, if we have that kind of concept in the company, so we will have a large database, we will have a lot of data in the company. So for that purpose also we can use the S3 bucket. Then for static website as well. The static website means that cannot be changed from the backend. So if I want to save the data of those static websites, again we can use the S3. So we have a lot of purpose for the S3 depending upon the company. Just give me 1 second. SQL transaction information. Just for a second, about to failed. Yeah. So these are the different purpose. All in all, the purpose is to store the data, to store the unstructured data. That is, purpose can be different. Some companies are using it for application hosting. Some companies are using it for media hosting. Some companies are only using it for the backup storage. Some companies are using it for the data storage. So the ultimate purpose of all these concepts are to store the data. That is something we use S3 all about. So S3 is primarily used to store the data, which is in unstructured format. Whatever is my business purpose, that I can use, but it will be solely used for the storage only. Now, when we talk about the storage of the data in the S3, it will be in the form of bucket. We need to create the buckets. So S3 is what? S3 is actually one of the storage. It's a big storage. It's a resource. Inside that, if I want to organize my data, if I want to save my data, so I will have to create the bucket. Bucket simply means folder here. In AWS, we don't call it folder, we call it bucket. So we create the bucket, small bucket means small folder. Inside that, we can save our data. We can segregate our data here. Just like for company HCL, I have a bucket, so I will save my data here. In HCL, again, inside the HCL bucket is what? It's the parent folder. Inside the HCL bucket, I have HR folder, I have sales folder, I have operations folder. So this is again my sub buckets. HCL is the main parent folder on my S3, on my storage. That is called parent bucket. Inside the parent bucket, I have sub buckets or child buckets. So that is divided for HR department, for sales department, and for ops department. And we can save our data accordingly. So in AWS S3, we have the concept of bucket. We don't call it folder. We call it bucket here. In the bucket, when we talk about the bucket, it should have globally unique name. The bucket should have the globally unique name. Globally unique name means because I will save my data inside the S3, my data will be saved inside the S3 bucket. So it should have one of the unique name in the world. It is not something that you will keep the name test and you would be able to access your data. Your name should be unique. If I am selecting the name as testing, so that testing name should not be used by anyone in the world when it comes to AWS account. So the name should be unique. I will show you once we will start this practical. So name should be unique of that particular storage account of that S3 bucket. Then the link will get created and you can access that particular storage from any part of the location by using the internet. One more thing, there is a naming convention here. Naming convention I will show you once I will create the S3 bucket. So in the name, when we decide the name of the S3, we cannot keep the uppercase letter. We cannot use the underscore. We should use the maximum 63 characters name. Minimum it should be of 3 characters. So I will just show you during the practical of that, because it is something which is not required to understand. But once we will create the S3, then I will tell you what are the conditions associated with it. Then one more thing, when we talk about the objects, object means whatever data is actually, whatever data we are storing inside the bucket, that data is known as object in AWS. Whatever data we are storing, that data is known as object. So inside the bucket, inside the folder, whatever data I will upload, that will be known as object. So every object will have one of the key, the access key. If I want to access any data from the AWS portal, so I will have to generate the key, and that key is in the form of URL. That will be a URL like there will be one of the address like this. I need to open that URL on the browser and I would be able to use my data. So access key is also one of the component here in order to access the object, in order to access the data. And one more thing, one object size can be maximum 5 TB. There is a limitation. One object means one single data size can be maximum 5 TB. It means if you are uploading one file, if you have one file, so maximum you can upload it one file for the size of 5 TB only. It's not something that complete data you can upload for 5 TB. One data size, one object size can be of 5 TB only. You can upload 4 files of 5 TB each, 5 TB, 5 TB, 5 TB, 5 TB, but maximum size for one object can be 5 TB only. If you have more than that, if you have more than 5 TB of object, then you will have to segregate that. There is also the concept that you can use. So you will have to segregate that with multi-part upload. There is a concept of multi-part upload here. If your object size is more than 5 TB, you can also use it in the form of multi-part upload. But maximum, a single object can be of the size of 5 TB only, not more than that. If it is, you will have to divide it in the multi-parts. So the concept is somehow complex to understand. You just need to remember some important things. Important things here is what is the purpose of S3. So you will have to remember these things, that why companies are using the S3. So the main point to remember here is this one: big data static website. For media hosting, you can give the example. For backup data, you can remember the example. Rest of the things you can skip. For application hosting as well, you can remember it. So in order to store the backup data, in order to store the unstructured data, in order to store the big data, in order to store the website data, we can use the S3. Rest of the options, if you don't remember, that's okay. Only 2 or 3 options you should remember, that what is the purpose of S3, why companies prefer the S3. That is something you need to remember. Then you need to remember about the structured and unstructured data. What is structured data? So structured data is the organized data, and it is in the form of table. Generally, the Excel data is considered as structured data. And in order to store the structured data, we can use these things: MySQL, SQL, Cosmos DB, MariaDB, MongoDB kind of servers. For unstructured data, we can use the S3. In the S3, you need to remember, we have the bucket service. S3 is a separate name. Bucket is a separate name. In S3, we have the bucket service. What is bucket? Bucket is like your folder where you upload your data. So you upload your data in a folder. That folder is known as bucket. So the complete name will be S3 bucket. Whatever data you upload, that data is known as object here. And object size can be maximum 5 terabyte. This is something you need to remember. Every object means every data can be accessed through URL, which is known as access key here. That is something you need to remember. These are the important things that you need to remember. Otherwise, you can skip rest of the part. That was for your knowledge only. If I will go to the AWS console, so in S3, we have to discuss a lot of things: the replication, the permission, the compatibility part, the access method, the restriction part. But it will be completed by tomorrow. It will not take much time. It will just take one class. Let me show you. See, when I will search in the AWS console for the S3 option, S3, here we can see. We just need to search for the S3 and we can see scalable storage in the cloud. So the full form of S3 is actually scalable storage services, or scalable storage. Scalable storage service is the full form. That's the reason it is S3. Scalable S, storage another S, and services is the third S. That is the full form. Scalable storage services. So that is the full form of S3. S3 Glacier is a different thing. It is one of the archival storage, just to store the compressed data. Snow family is used for the big data. Transfer family is just for the transfer of the data from one portal to another. So this service we will use, this one, S3. So just click here. And here we will be creating the bucket. See, in S3, we need to create the bucket. That is our first task. If I want to use the S3 service to store and retrieve any amount of data, see, we can use this service to store and retrieve any amount of data from any part of the world. It will give you storage service. It will give you scalability, means whatever data you have, you can upload it. It will give you availability from any location, you can access it. It will give you security because the data is saved on the cloud. So AWS will be responsible for the security. And it will give you performance because the data is on the cloud. So you can define the location depending upon your customer. So it will give you a lot of facility. In order to use the S3, you don't need to pay any minimum fees. You can create the account and you will have to only pay for the services. You will have to pay only for the storage that you will use here. So whatever object you will upload on the S3, you will only have to pay for that. There is no minimum fees. If you will create the resource of S3 bucket, you don't have to pay any charges because that's a blank folder. So we have to start from here. Our first task will be to go to the S3 to create the bucket first. Here we will be using all these options. We will be exploring it, like how we can block the access, how we can provide the security, how we can restrict something, how we can enable the versioning option, what is the use of it. So we have to see this option. That's the reason I am not showing you the practical today. It will take our time. In the bucket name, see, bucket names should be unique. We have to give the name of the bucket, the name of the folder that should be unique in the world. You cannot use any of the name which has already been used by any other member. Then you need to select one of the region, in which region you want to create the storage account. So it's a global service. Whatever region you will select, anyone, if they have the link of your object, they can access the data from any part of the world. So we will see this, how we can use the bucket service, how we can use the copy services, how we can use the ACL and all. Not today. Tomorrow I will cover all this practical, and tomorrow this one will be completed. The bucket S3 will be completed by tomorrow only. And from next weekend, we will start the Terraform. So that is the target for tomorrow. You can take the screenshot of this. Let me do one thing. Let me copy and paste this in the chat box so that you can have this handy tomorrow. So this is the purpose. And these are the examples of structured data. I am also putting it in the chat box. Structured data storage servers. So these are the things that company uses in order to store the structured data. In the bucket is like your folder. Just give me 1 second. So bucket is like your folder in the S3. Here you upload the object. Object is like your data that you save here, and maximum one object can be of 5 TB size, and every object will have the URL to access it. So I am also pasting it in the chat box for your reference. And the name should be unique. Name of the S3 storage should be unique. And it is also known as infinite scaling. Just copy and paste it in one of the file so that you will have this reference. These are the content. I will also upload one of the data file in the notes folder that will be structured. But for now, you can just use this raw data that I shared with you, so that tomorrow, if I will show you the practical, you should have the concept clarity, that what is the bucket, what is the object, what is the access key. That's the reason I am giving you this particular content. So any question, any doubt so far? Anyone wants to ask something?
I have one question.
Yes.
It is not related to S3. सर जैसे कि इंटरव्यू में जैसे हमारा जो जॉब रोल है जैसे हम लोगों ने मेंशन किया है, तो सर उस हिसाब से जैसे EC फॉर एग्जांपल अगर EC2 की बात करें, तो अगर इंटरव्यूअर ये पूछेगा कि आप EC2 में मतलब आपका प्रोजेक्ट क्या है, या फिर आप EC2 में आप किस टाइप का सर्वर लॉन्च करते हैं आप, ये सारी चीजें
वो
अगर।
मैं बताऊंगा मैं। इवन S3 में आप लोगों का क्या काम है? S3 में आपका काम है एक तो क्रिएशन करके देना, उसके बाद इसमें रिस्ट्रिक्शन लगा के देना किसको क्या क्या एक्सेस देना है। अगर कोई बंदा लिंक के थ्रू डेटा ऑब्जेक्ट को एक्सेस नहीं कर पा रहा है तो उसकी ट्रबल शूटिंग करना वो भी आपका काम है। आपका काम ये नहीं है क्वेरी रन करना, SQL रन करना। फॉर दैट देयर इज ए सेपरेट डेटाबेस एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन टीम। इस पे कोई भी इश्यू आ रहा है S3 में, कोई परमिशन देनी है, कोई राइट्स देने हैं, वो आप लोगों का काम है। सो क्या क्या काम है वो मैं बताऊंगा। एक काम करते हैं, नेक्स्ट वीकेंड टेराफॉर्म स्टार्ट करने से पहले ये सब समझ लेते हैं कि आप इंटरव्यू में क्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बताने वाले हो, और आपके क्या क्या जॉब रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी हाईलाइटर्स होंगे, और कौन कौन से इश्यूज आते हैं AWS लेवल पे। तो 2 क्लास में हम वो ट्रबल शूटिंग पार्ट समझ लेते हैं अलॉन्ग विद द नोट्स। तब मैं टेराफॉर्म स्टार्ट कर देता हूँ, क्योंकि टेराफॉर्म से ज्यादा क्वेश्चन पुट अप नहीं होंगे, AWS से होंगे, और Terraform will be the additional thing. If you will add it in your resume, so it will give you the high chances for the selection. और उससे ज्यादा क्वेश्चन नहीं करेंगे वो लोग अभी। So next weekend यही कर लेते हैं। एक तो in the AWS what kind of issue comes on the cloud level, what you will be dealing, what will be your job role as a cloud administrator. So पूरा explanation कर लेते हैं Saturday Sunday. Is it fine?
Yes sir, because
So
sir
that
they will ask like real
no
environment
issues.
basis.
I will
Yeah.
arrange that session. So next weekend I will do it. Tomorrow I will cover this S3 part. Then from next weekend onward, I will give you the troubleshooting session and the interview related session. Okay?
ये सर, और सर एक और क्वेश्चन है।
Mhm.
तो जैसे मेरा जॉब डेजिग्नेशन रिमोट सपोर्ट इंजीनियर है,
Mhm.
तो मैंने मतलब आपने बोला था कि कम्प्लीटली AWS का ही जॉब जॉब रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी डाल दो।
नहीं, कंप्लीट नहीं। उसमें मतलब मैंने बताया ना, जो करंट है उसके साथ थोड़ा एडिशनल डाल दो। अभी तो तुम्हारा कोर्स भी खत्म होने वाला है, तो अब तो इविजन भी बना ही देगा तुम्हारा रेज्यूमे। इविजन तो अपने हिसाब से कर देगा।
सर आपने बोला था डेस्कटॉप सपोर्ट के लिए मतलब एडिट करके डाल दो, रिमोट सपोर्ट या फिर कुछ ऐसा सपोर्ट टाइप का है
हाँ,
उसमें पूरा मतलब क्लाउड का डाल
देखो
सकते हो।
अगर जस्टिफाई कर पाते हो ना, अगर रिमोट सपोर्ट पे अगर कंप्लीट क्लाउड का इंटरव्यू जस्टिफाई कर पाओगे तब तो डाल दो, नो इश्यूज।
क्योंकि सर
अगर
वो
तुम्हें
लोग
लगता
पूछेंगे।
है कि नहीं कर पाओगे, थोड़ा मिक्स कर पाओगे, तब तो फिर करंट के साथ AWS डाल दो। समझे?
ओके ओके,
मैं
और सर
बता
ये।
दूंगा वैसे क्या क्या करना है। रेज्यूमे वाला पार्ट तो एविजन भी मैनेज कर लेगा। बाकी मैं तुम्हें पूरा क्लैरिफिकेशन दे दूंगा, हाउ यू आर गोइंग टू गिव योर इंट्रोडक्शन, हाउ यू विल डिस्कस अबाउट योर जॉब रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ इशू यू आर हैंडलिंग इन द AWS, दैट वी विल डिस्कस। मैं बता दूंगा, नेक्स्ट वीकेंड से ही मैं स्टार्ट कर देता हूँ ट्रबल शूटिंग। ओके?
ओके सर, सैलरी का कोई इशू नहीं होगा, वो लोग मतलब अगर ऐसा करंट
सैलरी पे
सैलरी अगर पूछेंगे,
नहीं, ऐसा तो
करंट
कुछ नहीं
सैलरी
है।
अगर पूछेंगे एक्सपेक्टेड तो ठीक है, मतलब करंट सैलरी अगर पूछेंगे
हाँ,
तो जॉब रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी के हिसाब से।
उसका कुछ नहीं है यार, वो सबको किसी को कम भी मिलते रहता है। तो तुम्हें अगर कम मिल रहा है, तुम कम बता देना कि इतना मिलता है मुझे, उसमें क्या हो गया। बहुत से बंदे ऐसे हैं जिन्होंने कम में ज्वाइन कर लिया मजबूरी में, क्या कर सकते हैं, राइट?
ये राइट सर,
तो
सर
सैलरी
ऐसा नहीं कर
वैलरी का
सकते
कुछ नहीं
क्या
होने
कि
वाला।
जैसे अगर हमारी जो करंट सैलरी के हिसाब से फर्स्ट इंटरव्यू या मतलब पहली जॉब लग जाए,
हम्म।
तो उसके बाद उस ऑफर लेटर पे हम लोग आगे के लिए हाइक ले सकते हैं,
वो
क्योंकि।
सब तो यार तुम्हारा अपना पर्सनल है, वो तुम खेलो जैसे खेलना है, दैट इज सोलली योर थिंग, हाउ यू आर मैनेजिंग इट। वो तो तुम्हारी पर्सनल चीज है ना, उसमें सजेशन क्या लेने हैं तुम्हें। अगर नेक्स्ट इंटरव्यूज देने हैं उस ऑफर लेटर पे, यू कैन, इट्स अप टू यू।
नहीं सर, वो मैं नहीं कह रहा हूँ, अगर किसी की सैलरी जैसे 3 LP है, अगर वो डायरेक्ट 6 LP की डिमांड करेगा और वो एज अ फ्रेशर ही है, मतलब 1 साल का एक्सपीरियंस है, तो वो थोड़ा सा इनप्रैक्टिकल टाइप का हो जाता है अगर।
For this, do one thing. I will check with the Evision team. If they can arrange one of the placement session with the HR member who can handle this kind of question कि भाई अगर ऐसा हो रहा है तो क्या आंसर देना है, या क्या सिचुएशन हो सकती है। क्योंकि मैं तो देखो, मैंने HR पे काम नहीं किया है, आई एम वर्किंग ऑन द टेक्नोलॉजी। सो हमारे सैलरी लेवल लेने का अलग ही लेवल होता है। मैं तो मतलब ऐसे नहीं बोलता कि डोंट गिव मी जस्ट 30% हाइक और 40% हाइक। अगर मैं 20 लाख का पैकेज ले रहा हूँ, सो नेक्स्ट टाइम इफ आई हैव द गट्स, इवन आई frankly say that I am expecting around 30 to 35 lakh rupees per annum, मैं तो ऐसे बोल देता हूँ, but it is not applicable for any kind of person. सबके साथ नहीं चलेगी ना ये बात,
यस यस
है
करेक्ट।
ना? तो वो किस तरीके से हैंडल करना है, आप लोगों के फ्रेशर लेवल पे क्या बोलना चाहिए, तो मैं एक बार बात करता हूँ। इफ वन ऑफ द HR सेशंस कैन बी कंडक्टेड दैट वुड बी गुड, अगर हो सके तो। नहीं होता है तो फिर मैं उनसे बात करके फिर मैं आप लोगों को पास ऑन कर दूंगा, ठीक है?
Okay, sir. So can eVision also gives us the extended experience, like in terms of internship or something like that?
That I don't know actually, वो मैं चेक करता हूँ।
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
That I don't know. Maybe the admin team would be able to clarify, but I will ask. I am not aware about it actually. The person who are working full time here, so they know what kind of operations process we have. But I will discuss with them regarding your queries, and if they give me the answer, then I will pass on to you. Otherwise you will have to discuss this situation with the admin team with your own. उनसे एक बार बात कर लो, वो
सर
बता
वो लोग
देंगे।
मतलब डायरेक्ट, सर वो लोग व्हाट्सएप पे या फिर कॉल पे उतना मतलब रिप्लाई करते नहीं है।
Just wait for some time, maybe हमारा जो ये सेशन खत्म होगा ना, once our session will be ended, so maybe one of the session will be organized from them, okay? Otherwise मैं भी पूछ लेता हूँ क्या सीन है इसका, फिर
सर वी
I
कैन डू, सर वी कैन डू लाइक दैट, मतलब अगर प्लेसमेंट के भी सेशंस पैरेलली चलते रहे और टेराफॉर्म भी पैरेलली अगर चल जाए तो, क्योंकि हम लोग फिर
वो
अप्लाई भी
कैसे
करना स्टार्ट।
वो कैसे चलाओगे प्लेसमेंट के सेशन, मतलब इंटरव्यू वाले? अरे वो
हाँ
तो
सर
2-3
मतलब
क्लास में खत्म कर दूंगा मैं।
मतलब
ठीक है,
रिज्यूमे वगैरह अपडेट करना, वो सारी
वो
चीजें।
वो मैं 2-2 घंटे की क्लास लेके खत्म कर दूंगा, 3 क्लास में, 3-4 क्लास में, ट्रबल शूटिंग वगैरह सब। फिर
सर
टेराफॉर्म
हम,
तो 2-3 क्लास का खेल है।
ओके ओके सर, हम लोग तो मतलब वीक में एक दो, मतलब सात के सातों दिन अगर वीक में रहता है तो एक दो घंटा हम लोग क्लास मतलब ले सकते हैं, मतलब दे सकते हैं, पर आप अगर अवेलेबिलिटी हो तो।
7 दिन में अवेलेबल ही नहीं हूँ ना।
वही
मैं तो
बात है।
सैटरडे संडे भी अवेलेबल नहीं होता आजकल। मैं तो 11-11 10-10 घंटे काम करता हूँ। नीड टू जस्टिफाई माई जॉब।
या करेक्ट।
ठीक है, दैट इज नॉट पॉसिबल, बट यस आई विल एक्सटेंड द duration of the session and I will cover it, okay?
ओके सर।
हेलो
Yes,
सर, अगर संडे संडे में अगर आप 2 घंटे 3 घंटे का भी सेशन अगर लेना चाहें
मैं टाइम एक्सटेंड कर दूंगा संडे डोंट वरी,
ठीक है
क्योंकि
सर।
इसको हमें खत्म तो करना ही है, तो मैं इसका
हाँ।
टाइम एक्सटेंड कर दूंगा। आप
सर मॉर्निंग में भी आप अगर आप सोच सकते हैं अगर
मॉर्निंग एक्चुअली आई एम नॉट अवेलेबल, आई विल एक्सटेंड द टाइमिंग इन द नाइट इन द सेम टाइमिंग, ओके? मैं इसका टाइम बढ़ा दूंगा, मतलब आधे 1 घंटा और बढ़ा दूंगा।
ओके सर। और मोस्टली सर एक या 2 वीक में, एक वीक में कंप्लीट करा दीजिए सर।
1 वीक में मतलब 2 क्लास में?
मतलब दो, हाँ, चार चार क्लास ले लीजिए, मतलब 2 वीक ले लीजिए, मोस्टली करा दीजिए सर इस।
ट्रबल शूटिंग तो मैं स्टार्ट कर दूंगा नेक्स्ट वीक से, डोंट वरी। वो तो 2-3 क्लास में ही खत्म हो जाएगा वैसे भी, वो कोई बड़ी बात थोड़ी होती है। वो मैं बता दूंगा तुम्हें प्रोसेस, वो 2-3 क्लास में ही खत्म हो जाएगा वैसे भी,
ठीक है सर।
ठीक है? So let's connect tomorrow then and let's complete this S3 part. इसका प्रैक्टिकल कल कंप्लीट करके then we can proceed further, okay?
ओके सर।
चलो, okay, thank you very much for your time, have a good night, bye.
Night, sir.